Hello and welcome to the seventh episode of D91 Labs Idea Series. Through this series, we intend to highlight a diverse range of ideas and innovations that aim to move the needle further on financial inclusion, as well as inspire the industry to build and serve the financially underserved people of India. This interview is different from the usual ones we do at D91 Labs. Unlike the other episodes in the past that were focused on financial products that are used by the end customer, in this episode, we will focus on tools that help us collect evidence and design these very financial products better. One such method used by the industry to collect evidence is user research. User research is an integral part of the design process and forms an essential foundation for research and design strategy. By understanding users' behaviors, needs, and motivations through various research methodologies, we understand how people interact with products and evaluate the design solutions meeting their needs. Our speaker today is Arjun Arora, co-founder and CEO of Betafi. He has extensive experience in product management, marketing, and operations. Prior to Betafi, Arjun worked at Singtel, where he built Gomo, Singtel's first digital brand from the ground up, and grew it to 100K users and $30 million in revenue. Coming to his company, Betafi is a moderated user research platform that makes it easy to capture, synthesize, and share feedback from user conversations. It helps companies find answers from user interviews faster and uncover usability issues before it's too late. Welcome to D91 Labs Idea Series, Arjun.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Firstly, congratulations on your pre-seed funding. I'm sure you and your team.
Thank you.
So my first question to you is something I've been thinking about ever since I've heard of Betafi. There have been similar all-in-one integration tools in the marketing realm of business, like lead generation, social media, and analytics that deliver customer insights at each stage of the funnel. However, Betafi is an innovative approach focusing primarily on user research, bringing all under one belt the tools that UX professionals needs to conduct efficient research and usability tests. Can you elaborate on your thought process behind this app and what was the problem you were aiming to solve?
Definitely. So like you had shared before, and thanks for such a nice introduction. I was working in Singtel, and when I was working in Singtel, I worked on two different problem spaces. One was in operations, and the other was in marketing. In both of these roles, I was building products, right? In first in operations for call center agents, and then marketing a product for millennials, which Singtel was not good at. In both of these approaches, I used to sit with users for months on end and obsessively iterate with the product. So first talk to them about the idea, the concept. Then when there's early mocks, get feedback on that. And as even the product was being built, constantly get feedback on that. I did that with the call center agents with the second product, Gomo. And as a result of this, when we first launched these products, they were incredibly successful. So in the call center product, we literally had no learning curve for the agents. The moment we launched, they loved it, they used it. So all this change management things were like not even done, and it worked phenomenally well. And Gomo, as you mentioned, did very well in the market, raised 30 million revenue in the first year, right? But it also made me think like if in both of these experiences this was a key part of the success, why isn't this done all the time, right? I was in Singtel for 5 years. I saw tons of other products launch, and while there are multiple factors for why they don't work, one common theme I saw was often they needed to be top down and they did not have user feedback as part of the process. Like all products had software testing or finding bugs, right? It was never skipped. But user research was a best effort basis, and it really made me think. And as I dove a little bit deeper into it, I realized that actually it takes a lot of effort from finding folks to talk to, asking the questions, asking the right questions, capturing the information, and then from taking the information to summarizing it, generating insights to like translating insights. Like there's still a lot of manual work in this process. I think part of the reason is because this field is nascent, but also like if it takes so much time just to get the basics done, then people would not be motivated to do it as well, right? The other problem I also saw was a lot of user research is done, but it ends up sitting in these 20-page reports, but it's not actioned to the product, right? So we're thinking about actually talking to users is fun and uncovering the insights, and it actually really helps you save a ton of rework down the line. But how do we make it easy for folks such that they're not like spending so much time doing manual work? It should not be so disjointed and manual. That was the thing we were very focused on. And at the same time, we saw that as a COVID hit, as we were starting, and this moved a lot of user research online, there were suddenly people were using 3 to 4 tools: Zoom for talking to folks, Google Doc for taking notes, and then Miro for synthesis. But then a lot of effort is spent on bringing information from one place to the other. So the way we think about Betafy is long term, the goal is to make user research as ubiquitous in the process as software testing is today. To get there, we want to make the process very, very easy for the folks doing it, and also collaborative, like the way that Figma made design like a main theme in the organization, not just for designers. We envision something similar for user research. So very simply on Betafy, you can meet your users, you can take notes within the same console, and then after you take these notes and capture the feedback, then we help you make sense of that feedback through both some of the automations we have and the tooling. And finally, and most importantly, we help you share the feedback in the voice of customer. So if there was a user struggle or a cool user insight, you share that with the team. So ultimately, we hope if we do our job well, then user research is joyful when you're conducting it and impactful once it's like.
So, like you mentioned, after the pandemic, most of the user research definitely has moved online to the
Yeah.
Zoom calls and Meet and the likes of it.
Yeah.
What, according to you, are some of the best practices that a user researcher should follow, and how does Betafy plug into all of these, practices in the seamlessness of online user research?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that once you move online, that there's that much more responsibility on you to be present in the conversation and focus on the participant. I think when you do it face to face, it's easier to pick up those smaller cues, right? But sometimes online, because that interface, it makes it different. So I think it's important to be present in the convo. And one simple hack I suggest would be to stop alt tabbing during the call, because even though like everyone can alt tab very fast and type notes and look at the conversations, that split second is where you might miss on what they actually said, or what was the expression, right? So one of the first things we were against when we started building Betafy, we want to end alt tabbing. That's why you can talk to the user, take notes in the same console on Betafy. And eventually we have added even the interview questions on the same console for exactly this reason, because we were seeing that even when people can take notes on Betafy, but they have to keep all tabbing to find the question, that split second distraction always is a challenge. So that's the one thing. The second thing is about making sure that the tech setup is not so hard for the participant. Not everyone in the world has Zoom installed on their phone, or Chrome extension or things like that. So I think technology gives us a lot of enablement, but we have to be cognizant of not overburdening the user, right? The third thing is when you are doing things face to face and you have to write down on paper, it's extremely slow, and you can't write down a lot, right? But when you're like on Google Docs or Notion, you just type away, and by the end of a call, you can have 3 pages of notes times 10 interviews, you have 30 pages, right? And that creates it may be fun during the fact hard. So I think one other thing which is good to do is having a consistent set of questions and capturing data in a structured, consistent way. A Betafy definitely is set up to help with this, but I would also think even if you don't use Betafy, like it's good to have your templates in place, and like when you write notes, write them deliberately, because like nowadays transcription is also available, so you don't need to note down every single thing. The third thing is I think which technology has enabled is that you don't need to wait till all your conversations are done to like synthesizing, right? As insights start to emerge, there should be ways to put them up somewhere, and as more of the same insights emerge, you categorize it. So this is something we did not start with while we were building Betafy, but this is one of the modules we are working on, because we realize this work in progress synthesis as a very, very capable thing that a tool can help you with. And it's natural to the workflows, because whenever someone uncovers something cool, it's natural to share it. Uh, Last thing is, I think one place where moving to online has helped is that when we were in offline, it was pretty difficult to record the user and then mark the moments, right? But actually, the best way to translate the insights is to share in the voice of customer, right? Like if you can, instead of talking about, oh, the person struggled on this screen, you actually show the struggle of them being confused. That works like magic. So I think like the more we can share feedback in how the user said it, the better for the other stakeholders to visualize it as well.
Okay, that was really interesting to
Mm.
know. So you did mention something about overburdening the user. I think we'll get to that a little later, but first,
Yeah,
uh, like as you know, user researchers come with varying levels of experiences and skill sets. Like
yeah.
some might be very technologically advanced, while some might be purely into user research. So how does Betafy solve for making the onboarding and functionality intuitive for all types of users, from the research, the backend point of view?
Mm.
And also, are there any prerequisites that the prospective user of the platform needs to know before they start using it?
Yeah, so I think because our goal is to make user research ubiquitous or a core part of the process, catering to different users is an extremely important part of our build, the way we build. So it starts by keeping the core tools simple, right? Like if you use Verify, the onboarding is pretty easy. You can watch the videos, and most of the workflow is easy. It's not that we try to keep the learning curve to a minimal in general, right? The second thing we have done over time as we are building is we also realized that just having certain templates for user interviews, right? For example, are you launching a new product versus you're iterating on your product? Like these interview templates, which are like opt-in, if you like them, you can use them, but at least a good starting point helps you get to that first question faster. Right. So in future, for example, we're thinking of having these templates for reports, for example, to have certain best practices we can use. Another thing, especially for usability testing, which we have tried to do, is there's certain like vernacular which is used, especially in the offline world, and we have tried to build some of those things into our product so that it doesn't seem so daunting, especially to user researchers who have done most of their research in the offline world. So, for example, we have an observer mode in the in our product which was inspired by that glass wall that happened in usability testing with observer sitting behind. So we've kind of tried to mimic it. Also, like we have a lot of this concept of scenarios and tasks which people use in usability testing, which we have brought into the product as well. So I think some understanding of how usability testing works is a good to have, or like understanding how to make sense of information with qualitative interviews or a small subset of users. That's good to have, but generally we do cater. It's very easy to get started on Datafy and uncovering things.
That's really
Mm.
good news for people starting
Yeah.
out and who are
Mm.
enthusiastic about user research, but are finding the whole starting point a little daunting. So
Yeah.
now let's talk about something closer to our work. So
Mm.
most of our
Mm.
research at D91 Labs revolve around
Yeah.
financial inclusion. Our primary segment includes women, gig workers, and other underserved or unserved markets or cohorts of
Mm.
the population. How does Betafy facilitate in conducting user interviews with such cohorts whose interaction and capabilities with digital medium is very limited?
Yeah. So I think very soon after we started, so we started by having like a web layer of the product, so desktop interviews and for the participant and a moderator. But very soon we realized for segments like this, both in India or Indonesia, they don't even own a desktop, right? So you need to have a good experience of your product on mobile. So even though we were a very young startup with a small edge team, we prioritized building our user participant side on mobile as a starting point, right? When we were building there are some very tactical things we did, which is like keeping the mobile app extremely light so that it's not hard for people to download, doesn't consume so much space. Then we realized that a lot of the other tools in the market which have the app, they're built for the US market, right? So they support the latest phones, but a lot of times this audience have very old phones. So we did like backward integration and supporting all the way to Android 6. And this suddenly by supporting a few Android versions earlier, it opens a massive market for you, right? So this was on the tech enablement side, right? And the second part of it is, okay, now that you have an app, it's light, right? It supports old phones, but the app needs to be easy to use. So one thing we found as we were building, right, like for us, it's like screen sharing is a very simple thing, right? Or screen sharing on Zoom on phone is not a big deal. But for a lot of folks who are not grown up with this technology, screen sharing is not that obvious on the phone, or that part of the interview is a big hassle, right? So we kind of inverted the screen sharing process. So you open the Betafy app, then it's the researcher's job to push whatever thing you're testing. It's not their job to kind of figure out and fiddle with it, and they can just speak on the phone as they normally would. And this has worked well. The other thing we also did was we realized that a lot of these cohorts are more comfortable in vernacular languages, right? Sometimes the interview would be a bunch of different languages or a mix of languages, could be Hindi, English, or different. So we've started to build transcription capabilities that support these languages already. And now we are building translation on top of it. So for example, if you have an interview in Hindi and English, the transcript will have English and Hindi both, and then the Hindi will also be translated. So it's good for the researcher, but can keep the conversation very, very casual for this cohort of users.
Yeah. And you also mentioned about the sharing of the insights because oftentimes user research is
Yeah,
conducted in silos, and which means a
yeah,
lot of the useful insights they get filtered out by the time
mm,
they reach the decision maker. So how
yeah.
can Datafy help with streamlining these insights so that they can be easily shared with a diverse set of stakeholders who can actually use these insights?
Yeah, so I think again this is where we were very inspired by how Figma brought the larger product team into the process beyond designers, right? So they're solving for design and not just designers. I think a lot of user research tools in the market today are missing this level of collaboration because they all end up being that the keeping the insights on their tool. There's a reason for it, so then your tool becomes valuable, right? But for us, the way we have thought about building Betafy is we think it's super important for insights to be shared with different people in the organization. But we recognize that these different people have their own tool preferences, which they prefer, right? Like they would not all want to suddenly sign up for an account on Betafy just because a certain organization team is doing. But they use these tools. So what we are doing is we are depending a lot on integrations with tools, right? So for example, now you can use Betafy on top of Zoom, right? If you allow them to be used on Zoom, suddenly your salespeople can use Betafy to capture that user feedback as well, right? Or you can bring in your Figma or XD prototypes into Betafy that will help designers. But most importantly, you can export the insight to Miro and or FigJam. And if you export it to FigJam, suddenly the designers live there, or you export it to Miro, the product marketers, the product teams will be living there. So these are tools which they're more comfortable with. Of course, we backlink things to Verify, but at least you don't inhibit other parts of the organization before they get to the user insight to have to download a new tool, which can be daunting. So that's one thing which is key to our product building philosophy. The other thing is we strongly believe that like user clips or voice of customer would be a big thing in order for this collaboration to work. But just technically, you should be super easy to share your clips as a public link or embed them. We embedded in like 70 plus tools now. And the idea there is again that you different people have different tool preferences, but most people would agree that listening to the user is important. Now, how do you get that important user information to them in the things that they're comfortable in? So yeah, we see collaboration as essence of what we are building, and integration would be the way forward to spread in the organization.
Thanks, Arjun. So throughout the call, you actually kept giving us little hints about the future integrations and features
Yeah.
like the synthesis engine and everything. To like just summarize all the important updates that are gonna come, because now there is a need to offer more and more customized solutions to the end customer, and the tools they're using these days are also supposed to enable all of this and keep
Mhm.
evolving constantly. What features do you see getting added to Betafy? And how do you think this is going to disrupt the user research space as we know it?
Yeah, so I think first is just since we're talking about integrations, we are doubling down on integrations even more. So we saw that the Miro integration was very popular, so we are launching the FigJam one soon. We saw the Zoom was very popular, so we're launching Google Meet soon and Microsoft Teams after it. So that whatever your video conference tool of choice, Betafy can help you capture that information, and whatever your synthesis tool of choice or brainstorming tool of choice, you can bring things there. So this embedding into the workflow will be like a year-long roadmap where every couple of months we add a cool new integration. And this also expands to tools like Notion or Slack or Jira so that you can action like a lot better. The second part was around the synthesis engine. We are kind of investing a lot on automation capabilities. but we do believe that it will be a mix of the automation and what humans are captured. So on one end, we'll keep making like things like instant tags better so you can mark those insights. But at the same time, we'll find ways to automatically tag your transcript or like create takeaways from the meeting. So those are things we are actively working on. The third thing is the usability testing piece of it, right? There are two exciting things happening there. One is we are extremely cognizant about making the experience easier and easier for the user. So we will try to think of ways to get rid of the Chrome extension or the mobile app so that for the user, the setup is even easier. And the second thing about it is right now, when you share prototypes through Figma, you're taking notes in the note console. They're going to make that prototype window the center of it. So as the user is using it, they can circle and say confused, or the moderator can just a certain Figma screen and say user did not understand the flow, and then they can directly sync it back to Figma or FigJam, and that creates that process becomes very, very integrated. So that would be the third thing we are focusing on.
Okay. These are very exciting innovations that
Yeah,
we're bringing to the
yeah,
user research space. So thank you so much for speaking to us about it.
yeah.
This brings us to the end of the episode of Idea Series. User research is a manually intensive process. Some unification and streamlining among multiple platforms can prove to be very helpful. To a great extent, Betafy is attempting to solve for this problem. And by taking the load off the researcher, Betafy promises to save time and enables us to focus on the insights that would help in designing better products and solutions. We wish you the best, Arjun, for Betafy's journey ahead, and thank you for thinking about user research problems so deeply.
Thank you so much. It was great to have this conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. For all our listeners, D91 Labs Idea Series is now available as a podcast on Spotify, Substack, and Google Podcasts. All links are in the description below. Do subscribe to our channels to stay notified about new episodes. Thank you.